But you go there and you find out how long you're a congressman, find out how long your senators have been in the office of senator and Congress. They've been there 12 years or better. Don't vote for them next time. Rise up somebody who you know is qualified, who you know has your best interest, our best interest, the nation's best interest at heart, and you vote for that individual. It's not about who's the most popular. It's not about who's been around forever. It's not even about who was a leader during the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement has been gone since the early 1970s. This is 2016. Come on, folks. We admire the past, and we need to learn from the past, and we need to admire our heroes of the past who struggled with us, who gave their lives for us, who died for us, and even were beaten and bruised for us. That is so true, and I'm the first one that acknowledges all of them and give them all kudos for all the things they've done. But let me tell you something. We're in 2016, and whether we know it or not, we're almost back to, like my brother said, back to the Civil Rights era, back to the Jim Crow era. You don't watch it, we won't have no rights left. We who have physical challenges, mental challenges, developmental challenges, we have always been on the sidelines. Yes, Pat Toomey and Bob Casey are our senators here in Pennsylvania. My wife wants us to know, and a lot of my listeners are from Pennsylvania, so they're your senators right there. My congressperson, if you want to know, who lives in the West Philadelphia area and in the Southwest Philadelphia area and even parts of Delaware County, is Dwight Evans. It's Dwight Evans. He took Chuck Todd's place. Now, unlike the senators, who there's only two in a state, there are many congresspersons because it all matters on what ward and district you live in. There's many of them in a state. So it's easy to know your senators. There's always only two. In our state, it's just Pat Toomey and Robert Casey. Those are our two senators. So write them when you have issues that we're dealing with. We're going to deal with something right now. You need to write them. Pat Toomey in particular, because Pat Toomey is the Republican senator from Pennsylvania. So right now the Republicans are in the majority. You need to get to him, sure enough. And other Republican senators and other Republican congressmen. People are even talking about they're hoping for, if all else fails, maybe Trump will be impeached. Let me tell you a little bit about impeachment, dear hearts. There have been 44 men who have been president. And why I say that is because one man, Grover Cleveland, was president on two different times. He was president, defeated, and then president again. That's why we have 245 presidents, meaning presidential terms. But in terms of persons, we only have 44 people that have been president of the United States. That's the truth of the matter. So yes, he's the 45th president, meaning 45th term in office. But as far as the men is concerned, there's only been 44 men. Because Grover Cleveland was a president, was defeated by Benjamin Harrison, and then he came back and defeated Benjamin Harrison to get the president again. So 2 non-consecutive terms he served. 2 non-consecutive terms. So there have been 44 men, 45 presidents. And out of the 45 presidents and 44 men, only 2 have ever been impeached. And none of them were ever found guilty in their impeachment trial. They were Andrew Johnson, the successor of Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, Andrew Johnson became president because he was his vice president. And in 1868, Andrew Johnson was put up for impeachment. He was put up for impeachment because he wanted to do away with what they had at that time called the Tenure Office Act. And the Tenure Office Act is that a president cannot take down a member of the cabinet, and this, in his case, it was the Secretary of War, Edward Stanton, unless it was approved by the Senate. Johnson decided he's going to do it anyhow. Even had a successor to Stanton. Ordered a general to take everything out of the office of Stanton, take all his stuff out, and put Thomas, that was the man's name, put all of his stuff into the office of Stanton, which was Department of War. We now call it Department of Defense, but then it was called the Department of War. The Congress thought that was a impeachable action because you went against the Constitution. The Constitution says, because that's what the Tenure of Offices Act is, it was a constitutional act. You know, every president, you heard Trump, if you did hear him, if you heard other presidents, you heard them always say they were going to protect, defend the Constitution. Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. They said you're not defending or preserving it, you're trying to destroy it. So he was up for impeachment. He went to the House of Representatives where all of them sit doing impeachment trials. And through negotiation and closed door meetings and other things, it ended up that he remained president by just one vote. One vote kept him in as president of the United States. That was in 1868. Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the United States. We would not have any other impeachment trial until William Jefferson Clinton. And everybody, I know, because I'm seeing the list here, everybody was alive when William Jefferson Clinton was president. It was during his second term in 1999. He was charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. He had a trial. My wife said she wasn't alive, but I think she meant she's lying. But in 1999, he had a trial. The House of Representative members were the prosecutors. The senators were like the jury. And the Chief Justice is always the judge of the time. She said, ooh. He was acquitted, and he, like Johnson, ended his term in office as president. So only two people have ever even had to undergo an impeachment trial, and neither one of them ended up not being president. They both ended up being president of the United States. Johnson finished his term, and Clinton finished his term. So if we're banking on an impeachment, I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's improbable. But let me tell you something, if that's the only thing we're banking on, that somewhere along the way he'll do something that's going to trip him up to the point that he's going to be impeached, that says a lot about us. We are really weak-kneed, and we're waiting for that to stand up and take action. And I don't mean getting a picket sign, and I don't mean turning over cars, and I don't mean burning down limos, and I don't mean having rallies. I'm talking about real action. See, one thing about Martin Luther King, he had a plan in his head when he went to see Lyndon Baines Johnson. He had a plan. It wasn't just going to talk about it. Every action that he did was a purposeful, planned one. When those people boycotted that bus system in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, they stayed off those buses for over a year. Not one day, like one day march, 2-3 day march, and then we through. He stayed on that for over a year, they boycotted that bus system. They broke that bus system, that bus company down. You think they could have done it in 3 or 4 days and the bus company would have dissolved or broken down and given in 3 or 4 days? Of course not. You think it would have worked in 2 or 3 weeks? Of course not. They persevered. They made sacrifice. Some had to walk. Some had to carpool. Some even had to leave their jobs, quit their jobs. Hello, Brother Byron. They had to quit their very jobs, but they stood for something. For over 100 days, they were on that boycott. We have a little bit here, a little bit there, and before you know it, we're back to everything is status quo. I know we had the Million Man March a couple years ago. There was one before that one. First one was in 1963. Next one was about 20, 30 years later. Next one was just a few years ago. And what happens? Yeah, we all got together, sing Kumbaya, and we have a good old time. We listen to wonderful speeches. We go home and it's business as usual. If something would have been done in any one of those marches that would have been perpetuated, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. That's right. We'd have our own black businesses by now. It's 1963. The very first one. And we have less businesses now than we did then. One thing about segregation, it made us get our own. James Brown couldn't get a radio station in Augusta, Georgia. So what he did was he got his own radio station in Augusta, Georgia. All those insurance companies that we flock to now, Mutual of Omaha and Nationwide and State Farm. Back in those days, hello Arthur, back in those days, we couldn't have insurance for those companies. They didn't insure black folk. We were insured by North Carolina Mutual. Man would come into our house every week, getting a little bit of change. Because those big companies would not insure us as black folk. We had our own because we had to have our own. And now that we have millionaires and billionaires in our community, we have virtually nothing. More of us are on welfare and other things more than ever before, depending on the government. That's why we're scared every time the election comes. We wonder who's going to be in because they're going to take this away from us. Well, by golly, maybe we need to start doing something for ourselves. We make $1 trillion a year. And everybody else has half of it goes back to their community. 10% goes back. Some groups have it as much as 50, 60, 70% goes back into their group. We have 2 or 3% of it goes back into our group. And that's mostly a mom and pop store somewhere. Sad commentary indeed. And we who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges, less of that goes back. Mostly everything goes back. That's why I don't mind welfare and all that, because when all is said and done, even if you're on welfare, if you're on Social Security, if you're on Medicare, whatever system that you're on, eventually the money goes back to the pot. It don't go to your community. It goes back to the pot. Somebody pays for my wheelchair. The wheelchair company is part of the government's group, a government company. Most time contracted out to the majority group again. So my community don't get none of that. I don't get none of that. None of us get any of that. So we have to get ourselves, our minds, our heads together, people. Really. We've been fool too long. And fool me once, that's on you. Fool me twice, that's on me. Fool me a third time, I'm just a fool. I'm the one that's a fool, not you. You out scheming me, you're tricking me, you're flim-flamming me, and I'm going for the okie-doke. We as a people, both people who have disabilities and those who are in a minority group, we've been befuddled, bamboozled, flim-flammed, fooled, wool been pulled over our eyes and everything else for so long. We don't even know what we see when we see it. We know that the sky is blue. They say it's brown. Yeah, it's brown, sir. You right, sir, brown. We identify by what they call us. As black folk, we've been called colored, the N-word, Negro, African American, Afro. Now we're black. Some people don't like that. They want to go back to African American, Pan American, whatever you want to call yourself. Who's giving you those labels? Somebody else? I call myself Gerald. Arthur calls himself Arthur. Teresa calls herself Teresa. Our last names are our own. Nothing. Somebody else is giving us our identity. As one who has a physical challenge, is to call us misfits, freaks, cripples, handicapped, disabled, retarded, deaf and dumb, midgets, lunatics, spazoids. Someone else is identifying you. And when someone else identifies you, then they limit you. It's what they think you are. Even when we come to our white brothers and sisters, redneck, all kind of derogatory words that we use about each other, but it gets in your mind after a while. After a while, you're so conditioned to be being called that you begin to believe it about yourself. Let me get back. I digress, yet it is all tied to where we are. That's why Donald Trump got where he is, because he knew how to tap into that, the insecurities of the people, the dissatisfaction of the people and the way things are going. He tapped into that. Sad commentary, but he tapped into it, and he was successful. He's president of the United States of America. No matter what he stays president for a day or for the duration of his time, 4 years. He's president of the United States of America. Somebody voted for him, somebody got him in, and he's now in. You know, that's the truth. Don't have to like the truth. Truth is not always disliked. Most times, truth is resisted. Truth is denied. Truth is very seldom accepted. But for our precious few. So, we have this impeachment mentality. Let me tell you, the likelihood of that being successful is very remote, to say the least. I doubt it very seriously. I doubt it very, very seriously. So, what do? Instead of us walking up and down the streets of America with picket signs and Molotov cocktail bottles and glowing rhetorical speeches and all of that, what we need to do is to formulate a strategy to offset whatever's coming down the pike. We need to formulate a strategy that will be the best for every American, and that will assure every American that no American's right and liberty will be abridged by anybody. Whether it be the 535 people that sit on Capitol Hill, the 100 senators and 435 congresspersons, or whether it be the President of the United States, or the Supreme Court justices or your common pleas justice or whomever it may be, your mayor, your governor, your senator, whatever. We need to get a strategy, formulate an agenda that can offset, can thwart, can defeat if necessary whatever someone has intended for you. Don't let them identify you. Don't let them put you in this box and this thing, and don't let them determine your future and your destiny. Don't let anybody do it. Whether it be the government or somebody in your own home. Don't let anybody determine your destiny outside of what you want to be your destiny. This is your life. This is your only chance. I don't believe in reincarnation. If you blow it here, it's done. It's blown. If you don't get it done now, it's not going to get done. And the older you get, the closer you are to saying goodbye, not hello. Like I always say, I used to say this a long time ago, one of my mottos of life. We're born, we say hello. When you're born, you say hello in order to say goodbye. You say hello in order to say goodbye. Like I said, another thing I say, we're living on the dash. We're born, we get a birth date, and we get a death date. We don't know what the death date is. We know pretty much all of us know what the birth date may be, and it's probably. But all of us know we're on the dash because that's where we're living right now. You better make the most of the dash. Because you don't know how long the dash is. Some dashes are very short. Some dashes last a long time. And most of them are in between. So while you're on the dash, make the most of the dash. Get yourself together. Get off your do-nothingness. Get off of your complaining. Get off of the keyboard on your Facebook talking about what should be and begin acting as though you're going to help make that thing you think should be. If all you're doing is talking and no action, used to be an old saying, talk is cheap. This year I'm planning on doing a whole lot of stuff. I'm already getting it all lined up in a row. I'm getting ready to do some things as an individual. And I'm going to do some things as collectively with other organizations. That's what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I don't want it to go out that no, I didn't do nothing but just sat on the keyboard typing things and comments and posting. I will continue doing that because I want to keep people aware and people awake. But that's not all I'm going to do. Mike said it starts with prayer, praying on your knees. That's true. But everybody that prayed got up and did something. Christ prayed for 3 times. He prayed to the Father to let that bitter cup pass from him. He meant the crucifixion. Father never did answer. But he gave him the satisfaction in knowing, oh yes, but not my will. That's what he knew. When God's quiet, then you know his will. If he told you something and he hasn't changed his mind about it, which he won't, we try to get him to change his mind because we don't want to do it. Prayed 3 times. Lord, let this bitter cup pass from me. 3 times he went to him. 3rd time it said the sweat was so profuse that it was bloody. But at that 3rd time he realized, I haven't heard from the Lord. There's nothing. The hour is growing near. He hasn't said anything to the different. So I'm going to say this, not my will, but thy will be done. He got up off of his knees, and there began his march to Calvary. Oh yes. Before that day was ended, he would be hanging from the cross. He got up and did something. Prayer is supposed to fortify you. Prayer is supposed to strengthen you to do the work God has called you to do. Prayer doesn't change anything in terms of changing God's mind or, oh, well, he prayed. One time there was an instance where God changed his mind temporarily because the man eventually did die. He gave him a little more years of life. The The prophet prayed for the king, and the king got a little more years of life. But he eventually died. I don't see nowhere in the book nowhere in the history book or anyplace else that he's still alive. Give him a little more time because God had something more for him to do. But everybody's on the dash. Everybody. So while you're on the dash, you better get to going. And now, with the way what the situation is now in this nation, you better get to going. Once you're going to be gotten instead of going, you'll be gotten. When we come together, it must include every group in this country, every race, every ethnic group, both sexes, male and female, whatever your sexual persuasion may be, your ability or your disability, or challenged ability, like I like to call it. My wife coined that phrase and I love it because it's so apropos. We all have to get involved, whether you're impoverished or whether you're middle class. We gotta get together. Can't be this factionalism. Can't be this division. As long as we're divided, we're going to always be beaten up. We're always going to be taken advantage of. We're never going to reach that place we want to reach, and this country will never become the country that we want it to be, as long as we're divided. We're a melting pot for a reason. We came from all over the world to this place for a reason. Not to cause division, but to cause unity, togetherness. We have every religion here in this country, every race here in this country, every sort of physical challenge here in this country, every sort of sexual persuasion here in this country. Everything we have here in this country. From Europe, from Africa, from Asia, from Australia, from Antarctica, North and South America, everywhere. Native Americans, transported Americans, immigrants, slaves, every sort of people, for every sort of reason, has all come to these shores and to this land. Not to tear up the land, not to tear up the peoples, but to unite them. We've allowed others to so identify us and separate us and cause schisms among us. And it was all for a reason. It still is. See, it keeps them on top and keep us fighting for the crumbs. They're eating the steak and filet mignon. I can't even say the word. Thank you. Filet mignon. Well, that's that little Spanish. That little CP comes in there once in a while, messing with my talking. And then you have those who eat the crumbs, and the ones who eat the filet are the ones who are looking down and saying, if they could only get together, they could eat this too. They could eat the best. They could be drinking the wine. It's at the Boone Farm. They're drinking the champagne and the pink and the mint julep. And we're drinking coolers in Boone Farm. Hello, Steph. They're sitting on top of the world and we're still groveling to get on the first rung of the ladder. Because we fight amongst each other. Though we're a melting pot, we still melting pot. We still fight amongst each other. And it's all part of a grand scheme to keep it that way. Every concern that directly impacts the lives of these groups, and I named them all, and those issues that affect every American should be a part of a collective platform. We have to get together and be concerned one for another about their plot, not just about your own agenda. I was listening to Roland Martin. I listen to him sometime on TV One around 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. And a couple of days ago, just before the Women's March on Washington, there were two panelists, and one asked one of the organizers of the march, he said, I understand that you really don't want people who are pro-lifers to be a part of this, of your group. And she said, well, everybody can be a part of the march, everybody can come, but nobody's going to change our agenda. We are pro-choice, and nobody's going to change our agenda. If you can't accept our agenda and what we believe in terms of pro-choice issues, then I would advise you not to come. I said, wow. So you're telling me that if I'm a woman, or even a man for that matter, but I'm someone who's really interested in being a part of this movement, who I thought was trying to rally to combat the policies of a Trump administration and the Republican agenda, that I'm going to come to this meeting so that we can formulate plans and an agenda to combat that negative, very narrow-minded agenda that they have. You mean to tell me that because I'm not pro-choice, I will not be received as one of you? So what you're saying is your agenda is more important than the fight. Your agenda is more important than us getting together and debating if we have to afterwards. But in the meantime, we're going to deal with this man called Donald Trump and those Republicans that sit in the majority, both in the House and the Senate, before we lose all the liberties that we have. If I'm pro-life and I'm willing to sit down with you and work with you to get something done, to thwart and to stop whatever plans someone who may try to destroy this country has, and you telling me, no, you can't sit down with me as my equal because you have an agenda that I don't agree with and I'm not a part of and all that. What? What is it all about? How are we ever going to get over anything? How are we ever going to have victories over anything? How are we ever going to overcome anything as long as we keep ourselves separate like this? Issues like that we can thrash about later on. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. We can even debate it and even argue it if we have to. But right now we got to do something before it's too late. And all of us, pro-lifers, pro-choices, and everybody else in between. Some believe in capital punishment. Some don't believe in capital punishment. Some believe in capital punishment, but they don't believe in suicide. Some believe in suicide, but they don't believe in euthanasia, or whatever the case may be. And all the while, the power brokers sit back and watch us fight each other. Oh, we hoop and holler, we scream and shout, but they know our divisions are so deep and our opinions so opinionated, and to really be honest with you, we're so narrow-minded too, that we're never going to join forces against them, not in a viable way. Oh yeah, we'll burn a couple of cars. Yeah, we'll push a couple of police down. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll throw a couple of stones and maybe a couple of Molotov cocktails. Or we'll do something like that, a little bit of violence of some sort or something. But they said we ain't worried about this. We ain't worried about this. First of all, we already call out the army. They didn't call it no army on this thing that happened on inauguration day. They didn't call no army. They said the inauguration will be about 8-10 hours, and after that, all that, because they were gone by the time the balls came. It was pretty much broken up. They just wait us out because they know we have no stick-to-itiveness about ourselves. There's no commitment really, and we're so divided anyway. We'll never get together about our own issues, and we'll never put them aside in order to fight the larger battle. We just don't do it. We just don't do it. So they ain't afraid enough. I was talking about. I was looking at their website, the Women's March on Washington, and I was just looking because I'm just curious. They had said in one of their advertisements that this is the greatest number of people with disabilities ever to come together as one in the history of our nation. More disabled people were going to come to this meeting than ever before in the history of the disability movement. That's what they claim. One of their posts or whatever claimed that. So in my little mind, you know me, I said, well, I wonder, since there's such a great number of us, remember there's 60 million altogether, we know there's going to be that many, but it was a nice representation, the greatest number of all. Hello there, Apostle. And so I looked up, I Googled it, and I found out who was all the speakers. Who was all the speakers? Since we came in the greatest number ever for the disabled community, we gathered together for the greatest number of us amongst all the people. I wanted to know just how many of these speakers were disabled. And I looked at the list, I looked at the list, I looked at the list, I looked at the list. I saw Madonna was there. I saw Angela Davis, she was there. I saw the president of the NAACP, she was there. A representative for the transgender people, they were there. I saw a Jewish rabbi, a Christian a minister, a Christian priest, and a Jewish rabbi, and a imam from the Islamic faith. I saw they had their list there. I saw a filmmaker, Michael Moyer. He was one of the speakers. I saw a lesbian advocate. I saw one of them there. They were a speaker. I mean, there's many of them there, but I'm saying they are a speaker that spoke on their behalf. Someone who was incarcerated, who was now speaking on social justice in the criminal system. She was there. Native American, there. Chicano, there. But I said, but you said this is the largest group of disabled people that ever have assembled themselves in history. And certainly some of the issues that Donald Trump is dealing with and the Republican parties are about ready to cut certainly have impact in the lives of people that are disabled. Issues like Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which we know as Obamacare. People say it as being Obamacare. I know that impacts people with disabilities, I'm sure. Changing the entitlement programs like Medicaid and CHIP and Social Security and veterans compensation, workers' compensation, children's loans. I'm sure that has to impact people with disabilities. And yet, not one. Out of all those speakers, not one was a person with a challenged ability. Not one. Madonna was there. Everybody was there. Every group, ethnic, racial group was represented there at the Women's March on Washington. But one, though they were the greatest number, and I know a few people that went from Philadelphia down there. One of my friends at that, name is Tony Brooks. He's a male. He was there. He was right there. He texted me a moment ago, but I asked him, I said, did you hear of any person with a challenged ability as being a speaker? I thought maybe they did come up with somebody, you know. He said, no, a man did come to me from the TV network, but nobody from the organization of Women's March movement came to me. No, just one of the reporters was down there and he saw me and asked me what I thought about the march. That's just before I got on the air today. He texted me on Facebook. Sad, isn't it? Sad. I'm going to end this right now, but I'm going to end it with us seeing what Trump has already done, okay? Let's see what the Republicans have already done. We already talked about before that the Republicans have already, even before Trump became president, they had already approved a resolution that would begin to dismantle Obamacare. Today, well, not today, but on the 21st, a day after he officially became president, Donald Trump signed an executive order that begins the process of repealing and dismantling the Obamacare Act. We talked about before how the Republicans, as a Congress, the Senate in particular, shot down a proposal made by Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. You know Bernie, the one who ran for president and through hook and crook did not get the presidency nomination for the Democratic Party. He had proposed that no changes in the entitlement programs be made at this time. No changes. You know me, once again, I looked up what the entitlement programs are. And I noticed that the entitlement programs included Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, Social Security, veterans compensation, workmen's compensation, all kinds of things. Veterans civil service, retirement, SSI, so many things it includes. Bernie said, don't change them. The Republicans in the Senate said, oh yeah, we're going to shoot that down because there's a good possibility that we'll change some, if not all, of those entitlement programs. How many of us have benefited? I'm waving my hand. How many of us benefit from Obamacare and or the entitlement programs? One of those programs I just mentioned. Live long enough, you'll all be on Social Security. Live long enough, you're going to be on Medicare. You never know when Medicaid is going to have to kick in because of some condition that may occur in your life, some disease, some accident, something unbeknownst that'll impact your physical, developmental, or your mental health. But many people have the Affordable Care Act in one way or another. They don't know it. They know it as Obamacare, but it's really the Affordable Care Act. And some of the things that we don't even know is really Obamacare because they call it the Affordable Care Act. We think it's that, but in actuality, it's Obamacare. Some of those HMOs and those special insurances that have kicked in and helped you pay for certain medications, helped you pay for some kind of equipment, helped you pay for some sort of hospital stay. That's Obamacare. But they're going to dismantle it, dear hearts, and they're already with this process. The party itself, the Congress itself that sits, and we ushered them all back in too, didn't we? We were just so swear that we're going to make it so that the Democrats regain the majority in the Senate and in the House. We didn't do it. No, we didn't. And the sad part about that is there's more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. So whose fault do you think that is? Because there's no electoral college with the Senate. There's no electoral college that decides who the senators are going to be and who the congressmen are going to be. That's a direct vote of the people. So who do you think has to be blamed for that? The American people. They went back in. They're still in the majority. In fact, they increased their majority in the Senate. But good news. We got a chance to do it all over again in 2018. Everybody waiting for 2020. You better get it together by 2018, else we won't see 2020. In 2018, once again, all 435 congresspersons will be up for re-election. What are we going to do? 2018, 25. Last time it was 22. Now it's 25 senators are going to be up for re-election. What are we going to do? Or in 2018, it's going to be the same business as usual. The same folk going to be back doing the same old stuff, and we'll be doing the same old thing. Back on the typewriters, back on the keyboard, typing something on Facebook, typing something in Twitter, typing, and done nothing about anything. In 2020, what are we going to do in the meantime about the Electoral College? Are we going to do anything about that? There's an amendment up here I can see right now. They're trying to stop some things. I'm so glad they're trying to stop that. The drug increases. That's good. Attorney General has been up. There's been an amendment that Trump has signed that will allow general. Before it used to be anybody who served in the military could not serve in the cabinet until, I think, about 12 years after they have retired. Well, this general had retired 3 years ago. Now there's an amendment that's been signed by the president that will allow him to serve as a member of the cabinet without him having to wait for the 12 years. Things are happening there, Hearts. I was just talking to you. It was just flashing on my screen as I was talking to you just a minute ago. Things are happening, and they're happening fast. One thing about Trump, he knows this. It's a good possibility he may be a four-year president. And in those 4 years, he's going to make the most out of them. And the most out of them may take us along for the ride. So, dear Hearts, keep a vigilant eye on everything that's happening. Don't ignore anything. Don't ignore anything. Watch, learn, then act. Stop this reactionary mentality that so many of us have. We react for a moment, the passion's gone quickly, and it's back to business as usual. Don't let it be this way anymore. And stop being divided amongst yourselves. Pro-lifers, pro-choicers, you better get together. Physically able-bodied, physically challenged people, you better get together. Poor, middle class, you better get together. White, black, you better get together. Native American, Asian, you better get together. You better get together.